Okay, we're gonna continue the next part of this series now. The next part of this series is reasonable and unreasonable gun laws. Now, in my last video, I looked at the North Hollywood shootout, and I explained that the federal magazine capacity ban did not stop crime because the suspects of the North Hollywood shootout had 15-round magazines, 20-round magazines, 50-round magazines, 100-round magazines. I made a mistake when I said their AK rifle did not have a collapsible buttstock. It did. I apologize. They had collapsible buttstocks on their weapons. They had fully automatic machine guns. Now, one of my viewers said something to me. He made a comment on that video, and I'm going to put his name up here somewhere when I upload the video. This viewer brought light to me a subject that I already knew, but I must have forgot to talk about it. Phillips Jr. and Mazzarano, the suspects in the North Hollywood shootout. In 1993, I believe it was, they were convicted of conspiracy to commit robbery. They were pulled over by a police officer for speeding. The officer felt he had the right to search them. He searched the car. He found 2 rifles, a boatload of ammunition, I think radios, I know explosives, and license plates. Now, if it was against the law to carry a rifle and ammunition in your car, half the people watching this will be on death row today. Because when you go to shoot your gun, you have to transport it in your car. You might be going to hunt, you might be going to target shoot, you might be going back and forth from the gun store to the gunsmith. You have your rifle on you. Okay? They were convicted of conspiracy because the Second Amendment says you can buy a rifle as long as the serial number is not scratched off and as long as you're not a convicted felon. But why do you need explosives? Was there a license for the explosives? Why do you need multiple license plates? So they were either convicted or most likely pled guilty to conspiracy to commit robbery. They served 100 days in jail, 3 years probation. It is alleged, I don't know if this is true or not, but I've heard from several different sources, that the judge involved in the case allowed them to have several of their items back. I don't know what those items were, but there were several items that were allowed to be given back to them. Now, if you look at the North Hollywood shootout logically, Phillips and Mazzarano literally broke every single gun law that I can think of. Literally. Now, we're going to talk about this in a minute. It is a felony for a convicted felon to touch a gun. It's a felony. So, the North Hollywood shootout, there is a possibility they bought the weapons before they were convicted of the felony and no one knew about it, or they bought the weapons illegally after they were convicted of the felony. Now, some people say they bought fully automatic weapons. Some people say they bought semi-automatic weapons and modified them to shoot full automatic. Now, you could probably convert any firearm from semi-automatic to full automatic. 2 problems though. 1, it takes special gunsmithing knowledge to do it. 2, it's a federal offense. Mandatory federal prison time. So, the North Hollywood shootout was an example that I'm trying to impress on people that criminals are not going to obey the law no matter how much we get down on our knees and beg them to. They're not going to obey the law. They're not. It doesn't happen like that. These people, they literally broke every gun law you could possibly think of. They shot at police officers, which is a state felony. They robbed a bank, which is a federal felony. They were in possession of fully automatic weapons, which is a federal felony. They were in possession of magazines that had more than 10 rounds at a time when no one could have a magazine with more than 10 rounds. They herded people into the bank vault and they came there against their will. They fired bullets up in the air to scare people. They put guns in people's faces. They were bad dudes. Now, my first talking point is raising the mandatory minimum. Judges have code books they have to abide by. A judge cannot just sentence you to death for having shoplifted a candy bar. There are mandatory minimum and maximum sentencing guidelines that the judge must follow. Now, plea deal. If the average judge, and I've been in the courtrooms, I did my internship with the courts. The average judge tries 150 cases a day. Yes, I'm dead serious, 150. So if every single solitary person that wanted to go to trial, that was charged with a crime, went to full jury trial, my hometown would need 600 jurors a day. Not 600 potential jurors, 600 jurors every single day, year round. Doesn't happen. It is estimated that 93% of people arrested plead guilty. It is estimated that the other 6% may either have their case dismissed for lack of evidence or ask for a bench trial where the judge makes a decision. And maybe one person out of 100 will plead not guilty and ask for a jury trial. Jury trials are reserved for very, very serious crimes. Murder, rape, conspiracy, organized crime. It doesn't happen very often. You're not going to see a guy on trial for shoplifting with a full jury. Not going to happen. Now, we should raise the mandatory minimum. Now, the mandatory minimum is the minimum sentence that the judge is allowed to sentence you for the crime you committed. And the plea deal works like this. Plea deal. Make the arrangement. The judge has 149 other cases to see in an 8-hour period. He doesn't want to waste his entire day with this one case. The person committed a crime, but they don't want to be punished. Well, tough, you gotta be punished. So they make an agreement. The person agrees on their own free will in the courtroom in front of everyone to waive all constitutional rights. Right to remain silent, right to a jury, right to present evidence, right to present witnesses. They waive their Fifth and Sixth Amendment rights, no questions asked, and the judge in front of the court promises to give them the least amount of punishment possible. They talk to their lawyer, they do it on their own free will. The judge says, if you plead guilty, I will sentence you to the lowest possible punishment I can by law. Deal. Guilty, 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 yes I did, yes I did, yes I did. Judge opens up the book, literally. Okay, minimum sentence, 3 years. No question. Minimum sentence, 3 years. Okay, so the person gets 3 years in prison. Now, raising the mandatory minimum. Here's a hypothetical thing that I thought of. Someone robs a liquor store with a knife. The mandatory minimum says 3 years in prison, just hypothetically speaking. If they rob a liquor store with a gun, the mandatory minimum should say 5 years in prison. That means they're still pleading guilty, and the judge is still sentencing them to the lowest possible denominator, but that possible denominator has been raised. If it's a federal crime, you need to ask Congress and the Congress and the Senate to write the law, to write the new law. If it's a state crime, the state legislature and the state Senate can handle that on the state level, and the governor can sign off on it. Burglary. Burglary means you entered a premises where you did not belong with the intent to commit a crime. It doesn't matter if the crime is successful or not. If someone breaks into a house and their intent is to steal a DVD player, but they're stupid, and the house is not lived in. It's a brand new house, the owner hasn't moved in yet. They've committed felony burglary because their intent was to steal a DVD player. It doesn't matter the DVD player isn't there to steal, it matters their intent was to steal it. Now, in my home state, we have 3 levels of burglary. 3rd degree burglary means you entered a premises that was not a home with the intent to commit another crime therein. Second-degree burglary means you entered a place that was a home, a house, an apartment, a condo. It was someone's home. So the punishment for entering a home is more severe. And in some cases, if the homeowner is present, it's even more severe in some states. First-degree burglary means entering any premises with a weapon. That means it doesn't matter if it's a warehouse or a real house. If you have a weapon, it's a felony. It doesn't matter why you have the weapon, it matters that it's a felony. It's the first-degree burglary, rather. So, in my home jurisdiction, burglars are aware if they enter a premises with a weapon, they face more severe penalties. It's harder to make a good plea deal. So, my home state, very few burglars carry weapons. That does not mean that no burglar carries a weapon. It does not mean that no one should be afraid of them. It does not mean a police officer should take less caution. It just means there's a lesser chance that he has a weapon on him. Raise the mandatory minimum. Punish people more for committing a weapons crime. Okay? That won't affect me for buying a gun to shoot at a target. It won't affect someone from buying a gun to keep for home for protection. It won't bother someone that wants to buy a rifle with a collapsible buttstock. But if they're using a weapon to commit a crime, a gun to commit a crime, the punishment should be more. I need to check my time, excuse me. Okay, we're going to stop now for a minute.